All right, so let's get into some weapon talk. Now, this is obviously one massive glaring weakness for the Patriots, specifically the wide receiver position. So, going through the different days of the draft, in the first day, relative to what their situation is, pick a number 3 overall, but if they pick a receiver, they're probably not going to do it at number 3. But who do you think would be a good fit for the Patriots in that first day of the draft at wideout?
Well, I mean, you can make an argument for staying at number 3 and drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., right? I think we're talking about a generational prospect at the position, in my opinion, one of the best I've ever seen, certainly since I've been doing this. So you can make that argument. I don't think they'll do that because I think they'll probably take a quarterback or try to trade down. Now, if they trade down, the Vikings are one of those teams. You're probably looking at a guy like Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze in that range, hopefully. Neighbors, I don't know that makes it all the way to the Vikings pick, but Odunze might, right? And you're talking about a prototypical X receiver, that a big-bodied guy that wins vertically. Like it's an exceptional talent. In fact, I think he's a lot closer to wide receiver 2 than most people are claiming right now. I don't see this huge gap between him and Malik Neighbors. That's just my personal opinion. If you saw that Matt Harmon dropped reception perception the other day, outstanding tool. Rome Odunze is like the only one. It's green every single route that he runs. It's out, and it's an outstanding tool. It's very accurate. He's a hell of a player. So if they're trading down to 10 or 11, he's one that jumps out at me. If they go a bit further than that, I'm big on Brian Thomas Jr., the LSU receiver. If you're picking in that 14 to 17 range, so to speak, again, led the nation in touchdowns this past year with 17. Elite, again, big-bodied guy that wins vertically down the field. Maybe you're 1B to like Rome Odunze's 1A.
How about day 2? Because 2 guys that I'm kind of feeling like I'm not sure if they're going to go at the end of the first or in that early second are AD Mitchell and Xavier Legette, who both, I think, fit what the Patriots see in terms of that big body X who can also make explosive plays. With AD Mitchell, I'm seeing a little more kind of pushback because of the effort, where it's kind of inconsistent. It feels like he's not always necessarily hitting his ceiling as a receiver. And then with Legette, a lot of the criticism is took till his 5th year for him to really break out, but that was due to a ton of different circumstances. So how do you feel about those guys, where they could go? And are there any other guys on day 2 that you could see being good fits for New England?
Well, I don't know about the character stuff with AD, so I don't want to touch on that. But speaking about the player specifically, if everything else checks out, I don't understand why he wouldn't go in the first round, to be honest with you. I mean, he just became the 3rd receiver since like 2015 or 16 it was to run a 4.34 or better 40-yard dash at like 6'2", 205 pounds. And the other 2 of them were DK Metcalf and Brian Thomas Jr., who did it with him this year. It was just DK Metcalf that had done it before this combine in like the last 10 combines. So, and then I watched the tape. Again, I hate to keep saying the same terms, but vertical, big-bodied, explosive playmaker. He wins at the catch point. He's dominant there. So if the character checks out, I don't understand why someone wouldn't take him in the first round. Whereas Xavier Legette, I could understand why he is a 2nd-round pick. With the 5th year, I'm not as concerned about that. I talked to him about that, by the way. I asked him about it. He said, offensive coordinator Doel Loggains and quarterback Spencer Rattler. Like, if you actually go back to his 4th year, it's very interesting. No one talks about this. I get it because it's a one-off. He actually broke out of his shell in the bowl game that year. Like, he didn't do anything all year, and then he had a huge game in the bowl game. And he said that was because the second Doel Loggains took over as OC right before that game, like a week before that bowl game, a meaningless bowl game. That's why you're making a coaching change. He said, we didn't feature you enough, the previous OC, and we're going to make you a focal point of the offense immediately. And he had like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And then he continues that into the 5th year. So I'm not as concerned about the production stuff. I just think it's a deep receiver class. We're not going to get 10 of them on night 1, right? And he's probably the 8th, 9th, or 10th best one. But I get why you would take him in that early portion of the 2nd round if you're the Patriots, if you don't address the position in the 1st round. It reminds me a little bit of A.J. Brown coming out, right? Where he's so compact at Debo Samuel, a little bit, but so strong after the catch. You run that, that bang play action, get him across the middle, get the ball in his hands after 9 to 11 yards, let him break tackles in the open field. He is so good at that. I don't have a ton of concerns with him. Another guy that you didn't mention there, what about Keon Coleman? That's another one that I think's a fringe 1st rounder, early 2nd.
I get attacked for mentioning Keon Coleman. I'm a believer, though. I'm with you. I think he's a lot better than he's getting credit for. He's no N'Keal Harry clone like a lot of people are saying he is.
Well, it was the 40 that's making everyone question it now, and I get it, but I don't think he goes in the first ultimately. But that's a guy, again, if the Patriots decide to address the position in the early portion of the 2nd round, I'm almost seeing it as like a Keon Coleman versus Flowers, AD, Mitchell, and they can choose one of those guys right there. I don't, what pick was it, like 35, 36?
Yeah, they're 35. 35 or 36.
That's the appropriate range for those guys. So I think there's a great chance if they do want to take their QB at 3, this class is so deep. You're going to come back and get a receiver at 35 if you want one.
We're on the same page, buddy. I like that. I love the Keon Coleman drop, so at least I know I'm not alone. So real quick, any sleepers that we should be looking out for on day 3 that you really like that people aren't really talking about?
You know, there's one kid, Ryan Flournoy, out of like Southeast Missouri State, small school guy, was at the Senior Bowl, proved that he could hang out there, and had a great combine as well, put up some big numbers. He's an outstanding one that really intrigues me. Another one that I've been a fan of this whole time is Jaquan Jackson out of Tulane. Probably not going to fill that number 1 receiver role for you. He's a bit undersized, but I'll tell you what, an NFL scout and Jim Nagy in separate conversations said the same thing to me, and I thought that was interesting. Zay Flowers. So he's undersized, but I see you light up there. He's so explosive, both pre-snap, and then when you get the ball in his hands, he's extremely dynamic in the open field. His pro day, I believe, was earlier today on Tuesday, and like every team was in attendance, and he's probably the best prospect. They got a couple others there, Michael Pratt at quarterback, so maybe some teams were there to see him. Jarius Monroe, the DB, who's a sleeper that I'm high on. But Jaquan Jackson, Ryan Flournoy, those are 2 guys that come to mind when you talk about receiver sleepers.
You say Zay Flowers, the twinkle goes off my eye.
Oh, yeah. He's dynamic, man. He's dynamic.
I'm excited. I got to dig more into his tapes. I remember I saw him at the Senior Bowl, but I need to watch obviously more to get a better feel for his game. But hey, man, they already got like Zay Flowers Jr. kind of and Demario Douglas, but obviously, you know, we had a couple concussions last year. You don't know what his role is going to be like, so you can never have too many dynamic playmakers.
Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Use the code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.